Hello and thanks for joining us for our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's start with a look at the day's headlines. The leaders of South and North Korea will have special phones set up on their respective desks today, linking the two as they prepare for the Inter-Korean summit now just 7 days away. A key obstacle to peace removed. President Moon Jae-in says Kim Jong-un is no longer demanding that American troops be removed from South Korea as a condition for denuclearizing his country. Plus, will North Korea make a major policy announcement today? There's speculation it could, as the regime is holding a big party gathering on this Friday. Our top story this morning. The South Korean government is putting the final touches on preparations for the upcoming Inter-Korean summit. Like I said during the headlines, that is now just 1 week away. We are going to cross over on the phone to our Cha Sang-mi, who's at the Blue House for us for the latest update. So Sang-mi, if you wouldn't mind, tell us more about how preparations are going for the big Inter-Korean summit.
Yes, hi, Mark. On the presidential table today, a hotline will be hooked up that will link President Moon Jae-in directly with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
One end of the hotline will be at the South Korean presidential office, and on the North Korean side, it'll be at the State Affairs Commission, an executive body headed by Kim Jong-un.
The Blue House spokesperson Kim Hee-kyum, during a press briefing on Friday, said working-level officials from the two sides will conduct a trial call before connecting the line today. But the exact time has not yet been set. Kim also said that President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will hold a phone conversation prior the summit meeting before next Friday. The Blue House also announced 6 key aides who will accompany President Moon at the Inter-Korean summit next week. They are Chief Secretary Im Jong-seok, National Security Advisor Chung Eui-yong, National Intelligence Service Chief Seo-hun, Unification Minister Cho Myung-kyun, Defense Minister Song Yang-mo, and the Foreign Affairs Minister Kang Kyung-hwa. The spokesperson, however, pointed out that who will sit at the actual summit table will depend on the number of aides accompanying Kim Jong-un. The Blue House added that Summit Situations Room will be up and running early next week.
Right, so a who's who of the South Korean cabinet will be making the trip up to Panmunjom for that summit next Friday. Now, Sang-mi, we also hear that President Moon, he had a nice lunch on Thursday with the heads of 48 local broadcasters. What did he have to say there? Anything noteworthy we can pick out of that?
Right, Mark. It was the first time a president has invited the heads of local broadcasters to lunch since the year 2000. And the lunch comes after the decision to allow a live television broadcast of the historic Inter-Korean summit at the second round of working-level talks on Wednesday. Moon said there isn't much the two Koreas can negotiate on with current international and U.S. sanctions strictly enforced. And he said inter-Korean ties can only develop further when U.S.-North Korea relations and Japan-North Korea ties are mended and the international sanctions are removed after Pyongyang gives up its nuclear ambitions. President Moon added that since Pyongyang has expressed its willingness for complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, he views denuclearization through the Inter-Korean or the U.S.-North Korea summits as not too difficult in principle within a larger framework. He also added that North Korea isn't requiring a withdrawal of the U.S. military forces from South Korea in return for its denuclearization plan. Rather, what Pyongyang wants is a guarantee of security and the removal of sanctions. Back to you, Mark.
Well, thank you very much, Sang-mi, for that fine reporting there from the Blue House. Lots going on. And there's also speculation North Korea could make a big policy announcement today as the regime is holding a Workers' Party gathering in Pyongyang on this Friday. It is the same meeting as the one in 2013 when Kim Jong-un adopted his policy of simultaneously developing the North's economy and nuclear weapons program. Let's connect to our Unification Ministry correspondent, Oh Jung-hee, who also joins us on the line. So, Jung-hee, under normal circumstances, we'd be rather concerned about the North raising tensions at a meeting like this. But we could see quite the opposite this time around. Fill us in on what you're hearing.
Good morning, Mark. The meeting the North is holding today is the third plenary session of its ruling Workers' Party's Central Committee, and a major policy change could be made here, as a report from Pyongyang's state-run Korean Central News Agency on Thursday hinted that the meeting will decide on new policies in line with, quote, the important historic period. And that's apparently in reference to the Inter-Korean Summit only a week away and the Washington-Pyongyang Summit now in the works. As you've mentioned, this is the same kind of meeting with the one held in March 2013 when the Workers' Party adopted Kim Jong-un's signature Pyeongjin policy, which seeks both nuclear and economic development. I was able to talk to a few experts, and they say this meeting could see some changes to that policy as it comes ahead of the back-to-back summits with Seoul and Washington, which are expected to focus heavily on denuclearization. Whether the regime will clearly stipulate that it's willing to abandon its nukes is not clear, but it may stress that the regime's security has to be guaranteed first, or it might choose not to call itself a nuclear state, but a strategic country. Also, the party could show a willingness to improve relations with Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo, and seek a peaceful coexistence within the international community. Pyongyang hopes to use this meeting as a cushion, pundits say, so its officials and citizens are aware of and ready for whatever agreement North Korea reaches with Seoul and Washington in the upcoming summits. Mark.
Well, thank you very much, Jung-hee, for that report. And we're sure that South Korea, the US and Japan will be watching the outcome of that meeting extremely carefully. Now, one of the topics that will be brought up during the US North Korea summit is the release of 3 American detainees held captive by the regime. The Associated Press reports, citing White House officials, that the issue was raised by CIA Director Mike Pompeo during his recent meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang. Also addressing reporters alongside visiting Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe this week, President Trump said the US is working, quote, very diligently to free the Americans. The 3 American detainees are Kim Hak-song, Tony Kim and Kim Dong-chul. Concern for all 3 has grown sharply after a 4th American detainee, Otto Warmbier, died shortly after he was released from North Korean custody last summer. With the 2018 Inter-Korean Summit now just 1 week away and the US-North Korea Summit tentatively scheduled for some time in the coming weeks, the United States has vowed to keep the pressure on Pyongyang ahead of those upcoming high-level exchanges. Lee Seung-jae with the details.
Things have rarely looked so rosy on the Korean Peninsula ahead of next week's Inter-Korean Summit and the planned Washington-Pyongyang meeting is set for some time in May or early June. However, the United States remained firm on its continued financial and diplomatic pressure on the North to get the regime to surrender its nuclear weapons program. U.S. Disarmament Ambassador Robert Wood, attending a news conference at the UN headquarters in Geneva on Thursday, reaffirmed the Trump administration's stance on the North.
We will be looking at this in this preparatory committee meeting to continue to put pressure on North Korea to fulfill its obligations. Again, the United States remains committed to the complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization of North Korea.
Wood added that the U.S. delegation would be looking for support at the 2-week conference on the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which is set to open in Geneva next Monday. With the U.S.-North Korea summit planned to take place after the Inter-Korean Summit, Ambassador Wood declined to reveal the details of the U.S. strategy for the denuclearization of North Korea, but noted that President Trump has made it clear he would not pursue a traditional process. He added that Trump's role will be important, but it will take 2 to make it happen.
His abilities are going to be very important, but like anything else, it takes 2 to tango, and the North has to be willing to take steps that the North itself has said in the past it was willing to take.
Back in February, the U.S. envoy stated that the North is only months away from obtaining the capability to hit U.S. territory with a nuclear weapon and must be disarmed, dismissing Pyongyang's diplomatic thaw with Seoul as a charm offensive. While North Korea has shown its willingness to completely denuclearize, watchers continue to remain on guard. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The International Atomic Energy Agency says it's ready to send inspection teams into North Korea if the regime's upcoming summits with Seoul and Washington go well. IAEA Chief Yukiya Amano said Thursday that his agency is ready to inspect North Korea's nuclear sites if asked. Amano added that while dismantling the North's nuclear program would be easy, they would need a safe and firm agreement on denuclearization. The Director General has previously stressed the importance of inspections in order to make denuclearization possible. Now, there has been a lot of speculation about what prompted North Korea's willingness to engage in dialogue. Factors include the sanctions against it, fear of war, and wanting to be recognized as a normal state on the global stage. But whatever the reasons, what's important from now until the summit in exactly a week is how South Korea is going to approach it and how to maintain the peace momentum afterwards. Our Kim Min-ji had the opportunity to sit down with some lawmakers who represent their parties on the Parliament's Foreign Affairs and also Unification Committees.
South Korea's rival parties have in general welcomed the first inter-Korean talks in 11 years. Lawmaker Kim Jong-un of the ruling Democratic Party of Korea has praised the Moon Jae-in administration's efforts to foster momentum for peace on the peninsula by maintaining pressure on North Korea while at the same time leaving the door open for dialogue. He also applauded the government for being able to set the tempo with the U.S. to prevent a military confrontation and for delaying the allies' joint military drills. Now what's important is how regional players involved restore trust that's been lost.
The increased sanctions against North Korea for its provocations over the past 10 years or so have stoked intense mistrust. Therefore, each side could demand that the other give way first. For any progress toward denuclearization, time is important, and it cannot be rushed. We need to be able to control the situation at our pace and support talks between the U.S. and the North. If any agreement is reached, we need a system that can oversee whether it's being abided by.
The Conservatives, meanwhile, have been taking a more hardline approach and have been pretty pessimistic about the recent developments. Lawmaker Yoon Young-suk of the main opposition Liberty Korea Party stressed that the North could be cheating the international community again and said we can't let down our guard. Until progress is made toward complete denuclearization, he says no carrots because the North could be hiding its true intentions.
It is a kind of temporary calm before the storm. We must achieve a complete and irreversible denuclearization of North Korea. But North Korea is more likely to use the tricks in its nuclear dismantlement process. North Korea is only interested in easing international sanctions and throwing up rewards. After the summit talks, the sanctions and pressure should not be lowered until the complete denuclearization of North Korea is achieved.
In the centrist Padamita party, lawmaker Lee Tae-gyu had a realistic but perhaps more hopeful view. He said while the concerns of the Conservatives are rational given past experiences, we can't allow those suspicions to keep talks from being held at all. He added that the international community is not going to tolerate any more tricks on Pyongyang's part, and that North Korea probably knows it, pointing to its statement that there would be no need to have nuclear weapons if the U.S. ends its hostilities. And with a string of important summits coming up, he stressed Seoul's role becomes extra important from here on.
Now it shouldn't be about who is in the driver's seat. What's important is solving the denuclearization issue. Whether in the driver's seat or the passenger seat, the important thing is that they keep the car moving along the path of denuclearization. The South Korean government can't worry about being the one behind the wheel. It needs to foster a peaceful atmosphere and build a bridge for the other regional players involved to play their roles.
The general consensus for now is that we shouldn't be overly optimistic and that it's important to maintain a balanced yet strong posture. That meaning Seoul should reassure the North of its security in return for denuclearization, but make clear that any tricks will be met with stronger sanctions and pressure from the international community. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, in a move that's sure to anger South Korea and China, lawmakers from Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's Conservative Liberal Democratic Party are set to visit the highly controversial Yasukuni Shrine on this Friday. According to Japan's Kyodo news agency, the number of lawmakers, we don't know how many as of yet, are going to go there and pay respect, with Japan's Spring Festival set to begin on Saturday. Last year, some 60 lawmakers went to the shrine, which is a symbol of Japan's militaristic past. The shrine honours 2.46 million Japanese war dead, but also includes 12 convicted Class A war criminals. Abe visited the shrine in late 2013 to mark his first year in power, but has since sent a ritual offering instead of going in person. The date is set. The corruption trial of former President Lee Myung-bak will begin in Seoul early next month. A court official said Thursday that the Seoul Central District Court will hold the first pre-trial hearing on May 3rd. The former president is not required by law to attend the session. During the pre-trial hearing, Lee's legal team will go toe-to-toe with prosecutors as they decide on which documents can be used as evidence when the main trial starts. The former leader, who was indicted early this month, faces 16 charges, including bribery, embezzlement, and abuse of power. He denies most of the charges. Ailing automaker GM Korea will hold a board meeting this evening to discuss filing for bankruptcy protection if it fails to reach a restructuring agreement in the coming hours. Company representatives say executives, including GM Korea's CEO Kea Kazim, will attend the board meeting. Talks on Thursday between management and GM Korea's labor union ended without an agreement on its rescue plan, including wage cuts and relocation of workers at its soon-to-be shuttered Gunsan plant. The two sides are meeting again today to see if they can find common ground before the board meeting. Samsung Display has filed a legal complaint against the government's decision to disclose a report on the firm's work environment. Samsung Display claims revealing the report could hurt the company's competitiveness as it contains confidential information and trade secrets. Cheonan Employment and Labour Office had planned to release the report, but the Central Administrative Appeals Commission put a stop to its release until the final ruling is made by the Daejeon District Court. The dispute began when an employee asked for the disclosure of the work environment report as he was diagnosed with cancer after working at a Samsung Display factory for 3 years. Now it's time to take a look at stories making headlines around the world, and US media is reporting that President Trump may be abandoning plans to impose more sanctions on Russia. Washington's UN envoy Nikki Haley had said more sanctions would be coming early this week for Russia's support for Syria's suspected chemical attack on its civilians. For more on this and other international news, let's turn to our Noah Adam. So Adam, these are really conflicting comments coming from the White House and Haley, and they are causing a great degree of confusion.
That's right, Mark. Citing Washington officials, US media reported Thursday that President Trump personally made the decision to scrap plans to impose more sanctions on Russia. The Trump administration was reported to have informed Moscow of the decision in a phone call to the Russian embassy in Washington on Sunday, moments after Haley told a CBS interview that sanctions were coming the day after. Officials were said to have assured the Russian embassy that Haley's comments were incorrect, adding the phone call was necessary to avoid confusion. However, the sources also said that the State Department official who made the call told the Russian side that Moscow was not off the hook and that sanctions were not completely off the table. The officials were said to have conveyed that issue was still under consideration. A spokeswoman for the Russian Foreign Ministry was also reported to have confirmed the phone call took place. The mixed messages from the White House and Haley have again caused confusion over Washington's stance on Russia's support for the Syrian regime. The White House also publicly said Haley was confused, but she insisted that she was not. Trump has been under fire for not taking a strong stance against Russia, and this latest revelation will only add to those criticisms. Thousands of public workers, students and striking rail workers have rallied across France to protest against President Emmanuel Macron's labour reform plans. In Paris, organisers said some 50,000 people took part in Thursday's demonstrations, while police put the number at 11,500. Although the rallies were mostly peaceful, there were occasional clashes with police who had to fire tear gas and water cannons to disperse angry protesters. The scale of the protests also appeared below expectations due to a split between two French labour unions, the CGT and CFDT. The CGT, which organised Thursday's rallies, wants Macron's reform plan, which includes rail liberalisation, to be scrapped. The CFDT, which did not attend the protests, say the CGT's endeavour is too extreme and wants assurances the government will mop up the French rail operators' debt and also ensure better working conditions when the sector opens up to competition. A 2-year investigation into the death of musician Prince has been closed after authorities said no criminal charges will be filed. Prosecutors in Minnesota said Thursday that law enforcement officials were unable to find evidence on how Prince obtained a counterfeit pill that killed him. Carver County Attorney Mark Metz also said they were unable to determine its source or find evidence of intentional wrongdoing. The late singer, who apparently suffered from painkiller addiction, died from an accidental overdose of the painkiller fentanyl, an opioid about 30 to 50 times more powerful than heroin. Scientists in Singapore have developed a robot that could solve what can sometimes be the confusing and frustrating task of assembling packed furniture. After 3 years of development, researchers at Nanyang Technological University made 2 robotic arms and gave them the task of assembling a chair from IKEA. The robot's array of 3D cameras and sensors helped it complete the task in just under 20 minutes. It does, however, have its limitations, as it was programmed to carry out the sequence of events needed for construction. In the future, though, scientists hope the system can put together any piece of flat pack furniture simply by studying its instructions. They also hope to expand the technology to the automotive industry.
Good morning. Today is Kogu, meaning grain rain, according to East Asian calendars. But it's not going to rain. Instead, expect summer-like heat along with high levels of fine dust. As for the heat, Seoul and Daejeon will get up to 27 degrees Celsius, the readings we would normally have in June, while in Daegu and Gyeongju and Chuncheon, it's going to feel more like July than April today. And unfortunately, we'll have high fine dust levels along with high UV rays. So have your face mask, sunblock, and sunglasses ready today. Nationwide rain is in the forecast on Sunday afternoon, and that's going to bring down the temperatures to seasonal averages. With that, let's take a look at the international weather for viewers around the world. So most of South Korea will have a summer-like weather under sunny skies along with fine dust. Parts of North Korea will be as warm as the south. Tokyo and Beijing will also have warmer than average temperatures under mostly sunny skies. Meanwhile, major cities in Australia will enjoy a warm and sunny afternoon as well. A few early showers in Perth will turn into sunny skies later on. Now heading to North America, many major cities in the U.S. will have a sunny Friday. And as for South America, Buenos Aires will have showers along with scattered thunderstorms and expect unstable weather conditions for the time being. Taking you to Europe, a full-fledged dose of summer weather has taken over much of Europe. Paris is also experiencing historically warm April conditions. Lastly, to Africa, Addis Ababa will have unstable weather conditions well into next Monday. And that's all the weather update for now.
Okay, well, that's where we're going to leave the news for now on this Friday morning here in Seoul. Our next bulletin is coming up at noon Korea time. So until then, goodbye.
South and North Korea are stronger when we are together. The historic moments and the wave of peace created by one Korea stunned the world. The melody of hope sung together and the energetic reconciliation brought the spring of peace to the Korean peninsula. We are one Korea.
Many people think that North Korea might be helped economically to build up their own economy. My question is, do they want to build up their national economy? It's a very peculiar system with equal distance to all the systems and with one ideology which absolutely just it affects the people's minds that as Juche, they have an ideology of their own. They created the ideology of their own. Even if we don't like it, but to some extent people believe in it. That's another tough issue. But dialogue is, of course, if you don't hold any talks, you don't know what's going on. So it's better. The question is how to talk and what to talk about. Sometimes you might have a precondition, or very grave conditions. You get rid of a nuclear weapon, then we can think about a peaceful coexistence. That would be a stalemate. I wish President Moon Jae-in everything the best to be very successful in these talks. The question is, where do you have the point